So, have you ever lost your code? I mean, picture this. You've just spent hours grinding on a project. You're writing hundreds of lines, tweaking things here and there, and then out of nowhere, the whole program just breaks. Panic instantly sets in, right? You desperately want that old, working version back, but you've already saved over it. Yeah, it's an absolute beginner nightmare. Look, if you've ever stared at a broken screen, begging the universe for a magic undo button, trust me, you are not alone.
Welcome to today's Explainer. We're diving into demystifying Git, the beginner's guide to version control. Now, if just opening the terminal makes you sweat, or you're constantly terrified of breaking your project files, I want you to take a deep breath, okay? I'm stepping in as your mentor today. And by the end of this Explainer, we are going to completely replace all that coding anxiety with absolute rock-solid confidence.
Here's our roadmap for today. We're looking at Section 1, the lifesaver. 2, your digital filing cabinet. 3, Git versus GitHub. 4, the core workflow. 5, branching. And finally, 6, avoiding mistakes.
All right, Section 1, the version control lifesaver, moving beyond messy folders.
You know, before we discover industry-standard tools, our workspaces are usually just a total chaotic mess. We've literally all fallen into this terrible file naming habit. You start with something like project_final, right? Then you make a tiny tweak so it becomes project_final_new. Fast forward a bit, and suddenly you're staring at a folder stuffed with files named final_last, or my personal favorite, final_real_last. It's confusing, it's super risky, and honestly, it's the exact opposite of how the pros work.
So, the massive upgrade here is what we call version control. Basically, it's a system that tracks changes made to your files over time. It literally saves your project's entire history, letting you easily restore old working versions if something accidentally breaks. And hey, this isn't just some neat little trick for beginners. It is the absolute standard used by tech giants, think Google, Microsoft, Meta, to manage their software updates safely. It's a total game changer.
Moving on to Section 2, your digital filing cabinet, building a mental model for Git.
All right, so let's talk about Git itself, which, fun fact, was actually created by Linus Torvalds way back in 2005. Let's start with our first fundamental term, the repository, or as you'll almost always hear it called, a repo. Whenever a developer casually throws that word around, I want you to picture exactly this, a highly organized, super secure digital filing cabinet. It acts as the ultimate central storage location for your source code, your project files, and literally the complete history of every single change you've ever made.
Okay, let's build on that with our next concept, the staging area. See, Git is smart. It doesn't just automatically save every single typo or half-finished line of code as you type it. Instead, the staging area acts as a sort of preparation zone. It's where you gather up and review your modified files before you permanently save them. Think of it like, well, like carefully organizing your papers on your desk before you actually lock them away in that filing cabinet.
Which leads us perfectly right into the commit. A commit is basically a permanent checkpoint. It's a snapshot of your project's current state. And honestly, this right here is the real magic of Git. Making a commit is essentially like taking a photograph of that staging area preparation zone. Once you snap that photo, boom, it is saved in your project's history forever. So if things go completely off the rails later, you can always just rewind your code right back to this exact, perfectly working snapshot. Section 3, Git versus GitHub explained. Two completely different things.
Listen, if there is one single concept that trips up beginners the most, it's definitely this one. Git and GitHub are not the same thing. Look at it this way. Git is the actual local version control engine running under the hood directly on your computer. It does the heavy lifting of tracking. GitHub, on the other hand, is simply an online platform, a website, that hosts those Git repositories. So you use Git locally on your laptop to track your code, and you use GitHub to back up that repo online and collaborate with millions of other devs. They work together beautifully for sure, but they are absolutely two different things.
All right, Section 4, the core Git workflow, your daily command line routine. Now that we've got the conceptual stuff locked in, let's walk through the actual practical steps you'll be doing every day when you open up that terminal. Here is the typical life cycle of a single code update. Step 1, you initialize Git in your folder, basically telling it, hey, start watching this project. Step 2, you add your updated files to that staging preparation zone we talked about. Step 3, you commit the snapshot, locking it in locally. And Step 4, you push that snapshot up to a remote online repository, like GitHub, for safekeeping. Understanding why we do this makes learning the actual command so much easier.
And speaking of those commands, here is your essential cheat sheet. Honestly, I'd highly recommend taking a mental screenshot of this to use in your own projects. To initialize, you just type git init. Easy. To add all your changed files to the staging area, you use git add dot, with a period at the end. And to permanently save that checkpoint, you use git commit -m followed by a really descriptive message inside quotes. These are basically your absolute foundational building blocks.
Moving to Section 5, Branching for Safe Coding, the ultimate safety net.
So let's shift gears a bit and talk about experimentation. Have you ever wondered how pro developers add massive new features without accidentally breaking the code that already works? The answer is branching. Branching creates a safe, totally separate copy of your project so you can experiment without risking the original code. It's the reason developers literally never have to be afraid to try out wild new ideas. Their main working code is always perfectly insulated. If your experiment on a new branch is a total disaster, who cares? You just delete it, and your original project remains completely untouched.
Navigating this safety net really only takes a couple of basic commands. To create a new branch, you just type git branch followed by whatever you want to name your feature. To actually jump over into that separate copy, you use git checkout. And just keep in mind the default primary trunk of your project is almost always called main. Now, once your crazy experimental branch is finished and working flawlessly, Git actually lets you seamlessly merge those changes right back into the main branch. It's pretty awesome.
And finally, Section 6, Avoiding Common Beginner Mistakes. Mentors' Pro Tips for Smooth Sailing.
To wrap up the technical side of this explainer, I really want to share some senior-level wisdom to help you dodge some pretty painful pitfalls. First up, commit messages. Let's compare these two. On one side, we have an absolutely terrible commit message, fixed stuff. On the other, a good one, added login button. Listen to me on this one. Descriptive notes are a vital gift to your future self and to your teammates when you're reviewing a project months down the line. Fixed stuff tells you literally nothing. Be clear, be specific, and document exactly what that snapshot actually contains.
And finally, here are your golden rules for teamwork. Number 1, always pull, meaning download the latest online changes from GitHub using git pull before you try to push your own updates up. This one step prevents incredibly messy merge conflicts with other developers. Number 2, never work directly on the main branch. Always use that branching safety net we just talked about. And number 3, like we just saw, writing meaningful commit messages prevents huge team confusion.
So I've got to ask, have you started learning Git yet? Because whether you want to be a web developer, a software engineer, or an open source contributor, getting this digital filing cabinet set up is simply non-negotiable. You literally cannot function in a modern software project without it. So I'm going to leave you with this thought. What incredibly ambitious project will you finally dare to build now that you no longer have to live in fear of breaking your code? Thank you so much for joining me on this explainer. Go get the terminal open, practice those commands, and I'll see you next time.
If you enjoyed this video and learned something new, like this video, comment your favorite programming language, subscribe to Future Break Coder, because many exciting coding and futuristic tech videos are coming soon.